Hi, I'm Carlene, and this is Diva Tonight. I have with me on Zoom Danae. She is a woman with many titles. I mean, if I want to say anything, she used to work at CHRY.
I was the manager, station
yeah,
manager.
you're a manager, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then changed the station to Vibe.
Yeah.
Changed titles to CEO to better reflect what was happening in the industry. Yeah.
And now you're actually working in the medical field. That's quite the change from music. Yeah, I mean, you're still in music now, obviously, as a media consultant, a business consultant. But what made you decide to do that?
So short answer is I needed a change. So after doing the station reorg, establishing not just a station, but a social enterprise, trying to delineate for people like what are the aspects of media that we would engage in going forward, not just radio. We would be going to digital presentation, so video and so on. That was 2 years of a lot of heavy lifting, a lot of stress, and I got to near the end of that 2-year mark and was like, I don't need to do this anymore. I don't need to prove anything. You know, I've done a decade in media, in leadership in media, and what else is out there for me? That's the short version. And so I looked into how do I transfer the skills that I do have into anywhere? I literally, when I resigned, I had no job lined up. I was just taking a leap of faith. I knew I was done with that. I knew, you know, my health would be at risk because my stress levels were high. And I was like, something will show up. Leap and the net will appear, some people say. So I took a leap of faith. And so I said, I'm open. And that's what I said, you know, outwardly. I said, I am open to wherever this goes. I am going to test for myself that transferable skills is a thing. And so, you know, I was an operations person. That was the bulk of what I did, apart from, you know, knowing media, you know, understanding sales, training, all of these pieces that I had already done. But at the core, my core skill sets is operations. And so I kind of leaned into that. I was fortunate. In my time on, you know, in VX3 Vibe and CHRY prior, I was also on boards. I was on board of directors. And one of the boards I was on was Black Creek Community Health Center. I was even the chair of that board at one point. And that kind of lit a little bit of a light bulb kind of went off. And I was like, I'm in this. I'm going to conferences. I learned the jargon. I understand the issues. I'm, you know, in the space, even as a board member, but I'm consuming it. I'm in it. So when the opportunity came up to work in healthcare, it wasn't scary because I tell people all the time, I think our lives are a sequence of things that we put in our toolkit. So every job you've had, every experience you've had adds to your toolkit. And so all those years I was in media and I was doing other tangential things in entertainment, I was adding to my toolkit. So when I was on the board of Black Creek, I was adding to my toolkit. And that toolkit led me into healthcare. Wow. So now I'm an executive director for a pair of nurse practitioner-led clinics.
Yeah.
That's my 9 to 5.
Yeah. I think it's like, it's not where, I always say this, it's not where you're going, it's where you came from. And so it's like you built your career in radio, but I think working in community radio is different than working in, I guess, mainstream radio, right? Mm-hmm. Because like it's stressful in the fact that every year you have to do fundraising to help raise money for community radio. Like people don't understand, like most of the announcers that work at CHRY, they don't get paid for what they're doing, right? And so it's volunteer work at the end of the day. And, you know, only some positions are paid. But your journey to healthcare, obviously, that's a big leap. Like, because they always say, don't leave one job unless you have another one lined up, you know? And so that itself is like a scary role to be in. But if it's too stressful too, like I guess for you, it was the best thing to do at that time, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was a life-changing time in general, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
stress aside, what else was I going to do? What else was
right,
I going to do in campus-based community radio as a leader?
right.
I'd already done it. I was on boards. I was,
Yeah,
I had led a reorg. I had led
yeah.
the prior station. I have established now a new station, Vibe 105. I have established now a new board. I've established what new thing
Mm-hmm.
could I produce? What
Right,
new idea? I could have challenged myself and do more and do different, but did I want to? Did I want to in that setting? Like the reality is, if other stations had come calling, maybe I would have gone there. I don't know because again, I just said I'm open.
right.
I'm open to change.
Yeah,
I want change. Whatever that looked like, it could have been change within the sector and another positioning in the sector, or it's a new sector. I
yeah.
was just open to change.
Right, right. I think that, I didn't work with you at CHRY for long. And I think there was one video that I found while on YouTube that I thought was so interesting when everyone was locked out of the station. It seemed like it wasn't publicized. It was like something that caught everyone off guard. Were you there at that time when that happened? I was like, oh, weird. Like, why did they do that? I guess that was when things were changing, right?
That's when we were changing the station.
Yeah, yeah.
So I mean, to quickly recap that, we took everybody off air.
Hmm.
And we're establishing a new entity. In essence, we're doing a full overhaul. We're going to change technology. So no more CD players, no more tape decks. We're modernizing. We're modernizing the space. We're changing how we approach campus-based community radio. We're taking it to the next level in terms of presentation, professionalism, and so on. So we had to have a clean slate. So we wiped. We literally said, it's done. Whatever you thought it was,
Right.
that's done. We're going to establish a new thing. And that's what we did. So the reality is a lot of people take ownership for things that they don't really own. And a lot of people take ownership for things that they don't understand. So the community, and I use community lightly, the community who were engaged in, listened to, or were on air, they thought they owned something. And I guess it was a hard lesson in you don't own it, right? It was, and I guess that was the harsh part for them is, oh, I was hosting and now I don't anymore. So that I can understand. Their reactionary thing to that is, oh, I no longer get to do what I used to do. But if you were a student of media, if you were interested in media, if you were growing in media, there's a role for you in the new thing. But if you've been stagnant, you never shifted anything. We always offered trainings at the station. And I can tell you from the people who were on air, handful of them would come to trainings. Every time we changed any equipment, outcry, outlash, oh my God, what is happening? So you're risk averse and you're change averse. We have to clean the slate. And then we can re-recruit from within or outside, right?
Yeah,
and that's what we did when we changed the station. We re-recruited mostly from within. Most of the people who we took over into Vibe were people who had done shows, but they were at a different growth level.
right.
They were not afraid of change. They were not afraid of technology. They were willing to come in and learn and try. And even some of those people aren't there now because we have to keep evolving. Media does not stay still. Anybody who knows anything about media, if you think it stays still, you are in the wrong place. What we're doing right now, this podcast stuff, didn't exist. Didn't exist when we were doing CHRY.
No.
But we saw it coming and we're like, we need to be able to produce media that we can drop into a podcast format. We had those conversations because we are leaders. We're having that conversation. We're paid to have that conversation. What is the next best thing for us to do? So the people who weren't paid, who were volunteering, who are community members and so on, everybody has an opinion. Great. Awesome. You're not the one doing the job. Great. Awesome. You're not the one who has to handle change. So I took a hit personally. And I think that may have propelled my leaving as well, because personally I was attacked. Personally, I had to change all of my social media handles because people from outside of the country who did not listen to the station were messaging and sending me hate mail and doing all this stuff because they were caught up in the frenzy of not knowing, not understanding, and you're not the lead decision maker. So sucks to be you to not be the decision maker, but you're not the decision maker. And the decision maker has to wear the crown, has to take the blame, has to take the hit. I did it. Great. Moved on, you know?
Yeah. No, I mean, it's been a long time since that was a station, and obviously a lot has changed since then. I mean, when I volunteered there, that was like how many years ago now? You know, it's 2006 to 2008 when I volunteered at CHRY. And I think that from volunteering there, that's how I knew I wanted to get into radio. And so it was a good learning experience, of course, and learning from community radio. I think it gave me, even that video, even though it had that negative spin on it, it made me realize how attached people are. They're a community, and it's hard to accept change if you're not in it. And I no longer work for this company, but even listening to you talk about that, there are always going to be people who can't accept change. Like, I started this company when you go in, you're so excited to bring in like new ideas because we're going into whether or not you want to, AI is here to stay. It's not going anywhere. Being a part of like learning how to do things more efficiently, like you were talking about, like the changeover in media itself. Like even me working in an environment like that, there's some people that just are going to complain about the change, right? No matter what. Yeah.
And during that change, there was something I would say to new recruits, new people who were doing internship with us who didn't know the old station. They would come in and I'd be like, listen, the key to media is being flexible.
Right.
The key to working in media and staying in media and staying at the top of your game in media is to be flexible. The power of campus community radio was that flexibility. Mainstream media is very hard to change. You literally have to shut it down, sell it, change owners to change what they're doing. If you're a country station, you're a country station, you're a country station. So campus community radio had that pliability because we were always open to multiple genres. We were always open to diverse voices. So there was that wiggle room to do some shifting because we knew the model could take it. The model of media could take it. Not all models of media can handle the abrupt changes that are happening right now. And we see it. We see how many newspapers are folding. We see how many magazines no longer exist. Because if you can't have a digital platform, if you can't interact in that way, you're going to die. So you have to be flexible and you have to be quick at change. That's just where we are.
Yeah. I mean, even though you're not in community radio anymore, you're still working in media and you're still doing a lot of things behind the scenes, like going to events like AfroFest and covering different things other than your 9 to 5. So what made you decide to do that, like create Pert Media and become a business consultant in that way?
So that was actually born out of my working with artists. While I was at the station, there were artists that would call me up, would want to sit with me, would want some ideas and so on. And I realized that I had a knack for certain things in media, whether it's because I was working in it or because of my eye or my ear, right? So people used to send me their tracks and they're like, before I put this out, what are your thoughts? So Parent Media and Business Consulting started because people used to always ask my opinion on brand related things and marketing related things. And I also noticed that a lot of artists didn't have the back end. So they were talented. They can sing, but they don't have any kind of marketing material. They have no idea about how to brand themselves. And similarly, small businesses were having that challenges. So those set of challenges. So a small business owner would also approach me and is like, 10 years in and I haven't grown my business, 10 years in and I don't know what I'm doing, 10 years in I have no systems and structure. So I'm applying my operations skills and I'm applying my brand marketing skills to help them navigate that. So I registered the company. I was like, okay, there might be some there. Let me register and see what comes of it. The reality is I haven't even worked this company yet. I really haven't, because I have a 9 to 5. When you have a 9 to 5, it's hard to be a part-time entrepreneur. It just is.
Yeah.
Entrepreneurship takes time, takes a lot of time. But when you're busy doing the 9 to 5, paying the bills, all of that stuff, it is almost a distraction from your entrepreneurial exploits. So I haven't even hit 50% on how I work that business yet. But each year, more projects come to me and I'm refining what is it that media and biz wants to do. Sometimes people are like, so why not just media? Why did you add on biz? I'm like, because small businesses are having the same challenges that media personnel are having. Solopreneurs are a ton of them now, especially post-COVID. Everybody's an entrepreneur. None of them have None of them have a structure. None of them know about policy. None of them know how to set up a proper business. But I got an idea and I'm running with it. So contact me. I will help you, put a little order to what you're doing and I can consult you on the brand. So those opportunities are still out there. And, that's why I opened up that bucket to be like, let me see what I can catch in there and how I can help people. Because ultimately, I'm always going to be drawn back to media. I'm always going to be drawn back to business, running things well and so on. So that's how that came about. Hosting, I'm a good host. Like if I should toot my own horn, I'm a very good host. So that's going to be a no-brainer. I will always host. I think every year I say I'm retiring from hosting and I don't. I get more gigs and more gigs and more gigs because word gets out. People realize that I actually am a very seamless host. I actually do more than the average host. So, and I have a great voice when it comes to that stuff. So I will always somehow get a call for hosting. So that will always be a part of whatever it is I'm doing, and I enjoy it actually. So it's a good side thing to have. If you enjoy your side gig, great. Yeah. So I enjoy doing it. So hosting AfroFest is a privilege. Being able to stand on a stage in front of thousands each year and to rep for the Caribbean, because AfroFest is the continent and it's diaspora, and they're making, a wiggle room for the rest of the diaspora, those of us who were stolen and so on. So I take it as a privilege to be able to stand on that stage and help navigate. So those things will always be a part of what I do.
Yeah. And so, like, even stemming from your growing up, like you didn't grow up in Canada, like you came here later on, from what I've learned, like you came here when you were 21. Yeah. So later on in life. And so do you feel like as a Jamaican that you have a role, like as someone who has to help your community in some way, whether it's in the healthcare system or in media, like you say, because we all have a calling, we all have something that we're meant to do. So it seems to me like even though you've changed your career path, there's still that side of you that's your passion. It seems like, it's a part of who you are, right?
Yeah. So I've always struggled with calling and purpose, but what I can say is I'm actively engaged in what I'm supposed to be doing. And I think it stems from my identity. Like I strongly identify as a Jamaican, strongly, like unapologetically, but I also strongly identify with community. So I studied local economic development because I thought I would go the route of planning and economic development and help build up community. So everything I have done, whether it is scholastically or career-wise, has always had that lens that I'm going to help to build up community. So when we changed the station and the name was settled, it was VX3, Voice Village Vehicle. right? It was always going to involve the people. It was always going to involve elevating community, everything I do. However, over time, community is hard because community is unforgiving, and is high demand, low resources, and so on. So over time, sometimes I get tired of that. Sometimes I feel like, man, I wish I would just chuck all of this and go work in for profit and just let go of that thing that keeps pulling me back in to building community. I don't know what that thing is. Maybe it's purpose, maybe it's calling, but I keep getting pulled back into it some way, somehow. No matter how I've changed sectors, no matter what I'm consulting, I am still being pulled back into it. So could be purpose,
Yeah, yeah. It's hard. It's hard to find purpose or to find your calling or what you're supposed to do in life. I think I understand when you say it was hard, because I think now that I'm older, like I just turned 40, I feel I can understand what you're saying, because there are sometimes, I don't know if you've had people say to you that, oh, this is what you're good at. This is what you're supposed to be doing. And I'm like, no, what are you talking about? Like, that's not what I see myself doing. Like, you have this other idea in your mind, and then it just takes time and like trying different things to figure it all out. Oh, this is what I'm good at. And not necessarily what you're good at is what you're supposed to be doing. But getting back to what you say, what makes it hard about community work? I think there's a lot of misunderstanding with that. What makes it challenging? What do you think?
So community work tends to be under-resourced, right? So that's the first issue.
Right.
It is usually where the highest need is and the least amount of support. And so people who are on the front lines in any form of community work, whether it is in campus-based community radio or in healthcare or in, anything where the word nonprofit is attached.
Yeah.
It's going to come with challenges,
right?
Because we'll never have enough resources to meet the needs. And the needs, especially these days, expand, right? Like
we're dealing with a lot of now you're dealing. Okay, so you're in healthcare, but like the fact that we're dealing with inflation, we're dealing with homelessness, like we're dealing with a housing crisis. There's so many things, and that is like, what do you say to that? Like, we've been dealing with this,
and which do you fix? How do you?
Yeah.
When you don't have enough, we're all functioning from a place of a deficit. We're all functioning from that. Every sector that has the word nonprofit is functioning from a deficit. And as the society grows, more immigrants, more challenges economically, because don't be fooled. This economy is not getting any better. You could change 5 million prime ministers and presidents. They do not have the answer.
No.
Because society changed. Society changed faster than the people did.
It did.
So now that we've entered a digital virtual era, how many people are tooled for this next phase? And you started earlier in the conversation with talking about AI. AI brings me excitement and fear, because we can only at this stage manipulate it, use it to our advantage, incorporate it in our work. But what happens at the next phase when less and less of us is needed, right? So we're not ready. We're not ready. And if you're a nonprofit, you're so not ready for what is about to happen, right? So yes, we will incorporate all these new things and we will change and we will try to change, but we're going to hit a wall at some point. So if you're somebody who, like me, I read a lot.
Yeah.
I keep up with current affairs because of my local economic development background. I'm very curious about development issues. I'm very curious about climate change. All of these things sometimes keep me up at night because it's like a puzzle. I'm like, how will we navigate this? I literally am concerned. I'm literally concerned in any sector I'm working in or consulting in. I'm concerned for what does next 5 years and next 10 years. So that's why it's hard. It's hard when you care. If you don't care, it might not be hard.
Yeah.
It might not be hard. It
Yeah,
might not
like,
be hard.
like
If I could take on that new attitude that people are having, because I'm seeing it in the workforce now where people don't care. If I could take that on, I would have more sleep. I'd have more sleep
yeah,
at night.
it would be so easy if we could just, sometimes I have to say that to some of my colleagues. Like, I'm just like, okay, because it takes one person to want to change, but if you don't have a collective, Danae, you're not gonna get the change. Like, if there's only one person who's going to voice, like there's always the people that are gonna talk about the issue, but they're not going to do anything about it. And that's the hard part. And so, like you said, the people who don't care, I'm like, well, I guess I just come to work, do my job, and go home, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, I don't even blame them because they're looking at what we are looking at now financially. When we're looking at inflation, it's a recession, but they're not using the R word. We're probably in a depression, but they're not using the D word. When you're looking at all of that,
Yeah.
a protective measure is I'm going to do less. At the very least, I'm going to stress myself out less because I don't control none of this stuff that's happening. Let me back up. Right.
Yeah.
So I understand that it's almost a protective measure that people are taking is, hey, look what happened. My parents worked for 40 years at this place and got a pen. I'm not doing that. Right. I know that's what people are thinking. I know people are like, I'm not going to work as hard as my parents and have nothing to show for it and da 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 da. Or they're looking at, I'm working at the same level my parent is working and I can't own a home. Yeah. I'm working at the same level my parent has worked and I can't own a car. And we're in a space and time where that is more and more the reality. So I do understand, but as somebody who does HR, it's frustrating, right? But I do understand that perspective. It's like, no, get somebody else to do it. I get that perspective. I get it.
Yeah.
But when I'm hiring, I hate it. I'm like, oh my gosh, what happened to work ethic? What happened to passion? Yeah. What happened to interest? Where is it gone? Right? So I can see from both lenses, but my day-to-day life is to hire talent and keep talent. So when I have little to offer talent, I understand. I understand when they're like, get somebody else to do it. It's rough.
It is rough. Oh, so you do hire as well. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Like, wow.
I'm an executive director. Like, yeah, I have all of the things
coming at you from different directions.
Diva Tonight with Carlene Humphrey. This is 40, a female perspective.
What do you say to the future? Like, I mean, it's a scary thought. Just even listening to you talk about what keeps you up at night. That's a scary thought too, because that's why sometimes I'm like, okay, I can't watch this anymore. Because when you're talking about the environment and climate change and like even just the news right now, what's happening in California, like someone said to me that they could have prevented this from happening. Now, I don't know if that's true or not to a certain extent, because I haven't done the research. But when you see stuff like that, like we've had so many things happen environmentally, like where I'm from, Grenada, they've had like 3 floods. Like there's one in Carriacou and then they had 2 others, which is not the norm. There's floods that do happen, but not to this extent.
No, so, everybody's experiencing it.
Yeah.
Everybody's experiencing it. And I hear people on the prevention thing, but we're 20 years late. We're literally 20 years late. When I was doing local economic development, it's a part of environmental studies. That's the larger faculty that it was a part of. And so we would talk about climate change and so on. And the models that the climate change pros had worked out puts us right where we are right now in terms of increased sea level, increased heating, increased extremes. All of this was known. And I'm talking 20, 30 years ago. So could it have been prevented? Not last week, it couldn't. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What could they have done quickly, and this is kind of tangential, but quickly.
Yeah, it is.
I saw something on Instagram. Somebody did a video on a home that survived the fire because it was concrete. It was a concrete structure. They had a concrete wall around it. And the home itself was concrete. And, everything on the exterior was a retardant and all of that stuff.
Right.
We didn't have that technology for 20 years. We had it. But The other thing that we need is the will of the politicians, the will of the people to change, right? So if you're comfortable in a gas guzzler, I drive a crossover, so I'm not judging anybody. But if you're comfortable in a certain lifestyle, know that it has repercussions in the future, right? And they've been telling us, but we're like, they're talking about these increased floods. We're in Canada where we always have cold weather. Okay, did you notice how cold it is this week? Did you notice how cold it's going to be this week? No problem. Keep ignoring it. The weather is going to do what it's going to do. Climate change is going to climate change, right?
Yeah.
So can we prevent? I don't even know. I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but we have been told, we have been warned, and, right-wing, political thought leaders, it's hard to say thought for right-wing, but right-wing people have determined that that's foolishness. Climate change is foolishness. They know more than the scientists. And so we're in a post-science phase of our existence where we question scientists who have been doing experiments for 500 years, and we question outcomes that have been tested, and we know more. And people who have a D in science know more than their doctor, and people who have an F in chemistry know more than the pharmacists and the anesthesiologists. That's where we are. Now, for the future, here's the hopefulness in everything. We can still shift. I don't know if we can save the planet, but we can save our current existence. We can save our future existence for a little bit longer. We can delay some things if we are willing. I strongly believe that people have to find the will to do better. And right now, I'm not seeing the will to do better, but that's the hope. The hope is finding the will to do better, finding the will to improve where you are, finding the will to be like, what happened to curiosity? We have been so satiated by social media's folly that we're not a curious people anymore. Like, how many kids are we encouraging to pull Play-Doh together and make something with their hand and see what comes of something? We've plopped them in front of a PS5, in front of whatever other device, and we ourselves have plopped ourselves in front of TikTok and Instagram and all the things that are distracting us from real life, and we're not engaging. So if people want hope, I say re-engage in living, re-engage in what could your future be. Don't give up on it. What could it be if I did 2 more things? If I shifted my perspective, what could it be? And if I have a child, I don't have any kids, but if I have a child, what is the future I want them to have? What is the future I want to leave for them? I should leave one of hope. I should leave one of striving beyond the odds. I should leave one of finding the answer, because I've been doing this for 20 odd years. I must know the answer now, right? And impart it. So if, anybody watching this or listening to this is like, where do we go from here? Hope is inside. It's internal. It's not giving up. It's not throwing in the towel. It's saying there has to be a better way, and I'm going to be a part of it, right? That's the hope. I can't impart hope to you. You have to tap into that, right? And know that it doesn't have to be, we don't have to continue on this path. We don't have to go down this hill. Other people went down it and they told us it's not cute. We don't have to go down there as well. You know what I mean? But that's internal. That's internal.
Yeah. Those are some inspiring words for sure. Like, I think it's from what I've learned myself and just like being mindful and practicing mindfulness and just being in the moment, because we've lost that. Like, and you can't make other people want to be in the moment. Like, you just have to, surround yourself with people who have that way of thinking, because like you said, a lot of us are just, I'm not going to say I'm not addicted to my device. Like, I think we all have seen ourselves in, like, we have to retrain or, work on those things. But like you said, it's just having that hope and working towards it in the way we think. And so as a person who is very insightful about the future and hopeful, what do you think that keeps you hopeful, like in your line of work? I guess working in nonprofit for so many years.
So I don't know if it's keeping me hopeful, but each time I see the power of what doing more can get us, right?
Yeah.
So when you engage more with people, when you take the time to care, like I always jab healthcare. I'm like, there's not enough care in the healthcare. When you tap back into that, when you tap back into why are you doing what you're doing? I strongly believe people should do things that they love and do things that they're good at. I believe in that wholeheartedly. If you're not good at it, don't even attempt, I think. You know what I mean? I don't subscribe to this everybody can do everything mentality. I don't. I think there are things that you can learn. I think that you can add skill sets, but tap into why are you doing the thing you, and if it's not the thing you should be doing, walk away, because the thing you're doing deserves your best. The thing you're engaged in deserves your best. If you're in healthcare, care. Care is the key word. So if you don't care, walk away. Walk away if you don't care, because people's lives depend on you caring, right? Changes in society depend on you caring. So if you don't care anymore, walk away. No shame in that. Maybe you were meant to be a barber. Maybe you were meant to be an architect. Maybe you were meant to be a farmer. Who knows? Tap back into what is it you're good at and what is it you love. And
I think that's the scary part for some, like when you're not good at something or you're just doing it to get a paycheck, right? Yeah. And then walking away. That's a big move, like walking away, or getting comfortable.
I don't think it's easy by any stretch of the imagination, right?
Yeah, yeah.
To walk away, like you literally have to jolt yourself sometimes to shift, right?
Yeah.
But I strongly believe in doing what you're good at and strongly believe in doing what you love. I think the world deserves your best. Mm-hmm. And whatever that best is, that's what you should be tapping into. I don't think you should be doing things mediocre. I don't think you should be doing things less than. But that's just me. I'm old school.
Yeah.
I'm old school.
Yeah.
I'm born a long time ago. I came up with principles and standards and all these things.
Yeah.
I could be wrong.
Yeah. No, but like I remember even a manager saying to me, if you can't do it right the first time, don't do it at all. Like I think that's the old school mentality, but
it's old school, man.
Yeah, it is.
When I was still living in Jamaica and worked in insurance for a bit.
Yeah.
And my manager said to me, do you know TQM? Do you know TQM? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm new. And she's like, TQM, total quality management. If you can't do it right the first time, it's not worth doing. And I was like, okay, you're intense. But I took it in and TQM hasn't left my mind. And I'm talking about the 90s, right? And that never left my mind. Yeah. Do it right the first time. Do it good the first time. And that's not necessarily applicable to everything that we're dealing with now.
No,
right? Now in this digital realm where, you see like 1% of the people making good money on YouTube, 1% of the people making good money on TikTok. You think they're stopping to think about quality? You know what I mean?
Let's just see what sticks through.
They're just throwing it and hoping it takes, So I can't say to a person existing in these times with these challenges that the old school way is right. I can say that the principles of old are correct.
Yeah.
Work ethic.
Right.
Integrity. Saying what you mean, meaning what you say. I can say those core principles will always be right. The ways in which we execute them have changed. Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah. Because here's the thing. We're on a podcast now.
Yeah.
The podcasts that are top 10 have quality, right? Everybody has a podcast. I have a podcast.
Yeah.
I took a hiatus. Everybody has a podcast.
Right.
But the podcasts that are top 10, regardless of how many people have been throwing spaghetti on the wall, they didn't throw. They planned. They executed impeccably. Their aesthetic is on point. They have a show script. They have a person who helps them with ideas. They're executing in a way that is almost traditional radio, almost traditional media. They are still the top 10. So cool, Gen Z, throw all the spaghetti. I don't need to worry about how it looks. I don't need to worry about how it sounds. I don't need a real mic. I don't need whatever. Cool. But there's a million of you doing that. and then there's the top 10. So again, the core principles still hold.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's very true what you're saying. I think when you don't plan things, there's always obstacles that come in the way, like obstacles that come along, obviously. And what you're saying is very insightful and very practical. So I hope that whoever is listening to this can get some insight or get the belief again, because what you're saying is so important because I think even for myself, I've had to rethink my career path too, because for months I was working in an industry I didn't work in before. And then when it didn't work out the way I wanted it to, it's like, this time I think I have to do something differently. I do. Like it's important because it's either you get forced into doing things differently or something changes. Like I feel like we have to go through something traumatic or some kind of experience to make us turn on the light bulb to be like, okay, I have to change something now. Like this is not working. It's not. Yeah.
And I think the wise people among us don't wait for that moment, right?
Yeah.
The wise people among us don't wait for crisis. They're quick to change. They're quick to adapt. They're quick to course correct. Because you could be on the right course, but there's a hiccup. What is it that you need to shift while you're on the right course, right? Because if that is something you're good at and something you're passionate about, you could be on the right course, but you're not executing well. So how do I course correct? How do I, hoist the next sail? Because maybe I'm using one sail and I should be using two. How do I get a paddle going because the motor died? Whatever that situation is, get on that, right? If you're on the wrong path, get off it, right? Get off it. If you have no passion, no interest, no insight, no skill set for the thing, and you're going around moping, who are you serving? Who are you serving by continuing, right? It's not serving the people you're supposed to be serving in the role, and it's not serving you, right? So either you course correct or you get off that path and get on your right path. We're in dire straits now. We don't have time to waste anymore, right? This is not the time. This is not a time to experiment. Too many things are moving. So now it's, okay, this is my path. For sure, I feel it. For sure, I know I'm good at it. For sure, I just need something else. It might mean going to do a course to upskill yourself so that you can get to the next level. It might mean hiring somebody. It might mean consulting with somebody. It might mean shedding all the other things. Like, as much as I'm here talking, I do too much, right? So in 2025, I'm going to shed some stuff because when I look at successful people I deem successful, they hone in on one or two things and do them well.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So me with my 10 things, I'm a multi-hyphenate. I need to pull that in.
What does multi-hyphenate mean?
I'm a executive director. Yes. I'm a media consultant.
Yes.
I'm a host. I'm a, I'm an event coordinator. I can do all these things.
Yeah.
So what I have to do now in 2025 is hone in on the best of it.
Yeah.
Because I can do everything. Mm-hmm. I had to out of necessity because I was in nonprofit. I was always in nonprofit. And in nonprofit, we do a lot of DIY. But is that efficient and is that effective? So in 2025, I'm working on, I want more for my life. That's my word this year is more. I want more from my life, more from my talents. But in doing that, I have to also do less of the wrong things. That's where I am. Yeah. I need to rejig my formula because yes, I've expanded. I've done all the things and I've shown all the skill sets. But what do I need to do? What is my best self? Mm-hmm. What are those 1 to 3 things that I can hone in on that will have the most impact, most effect, most results, right?
Yeah.
That's the work I'm doing, right?
No, and that's important too. I think for anyone, even myself, it's like I have 2 podcasts, but it's like, which one should I focus on, right? And that's so important. Like talking to you, you've kind of added the fuel to the fire in a way, like with your passion, with the way that you express yourself. It's very important. And I think this conversation needed to happen in one way or another. It's important to share whatever you may, even if it's an old school mentality, it's still important because that's the foundation, like, the knowledge base, knowing and getting to where you are now. You know what I mean? If you didn't work in community radio, you wouldn't be working in healthcare now. And so it's just the steps leading up, right, to where you are now. And so it's the journey, right? And how you got there. So,
and that's why one of my podcasts is called The Journey.
Yeah.
I strongly believe that we're all challenged with similar things, just in different aspects of our life, right? So like a lot of people, when they saw me launch it, they thought I would only talk to artists. I don't only want to talk to artists. Yeah. I do want to talk to artists. I want to talk to somebody who's a mechanic. I want to talk to, because I know there is a shared set of challenges that we face as humans. And each person is combating it in different ways, whether because of the sector they're in or because of the skills they have. Right?
Yeah.
And life is a journey. And sometimes we're not enjoying the journey because we get bogged down, right? We're distracted by all the things that we're trying to do and trying to keep up with No, let's enjoy the journey, you know?
Yeah. The one thing I didn't ask you about is like, your parents. Do you feel like your parents influence who you are as a person today?
For sure. I didn't know how much of an influence they were until I got older, right? So if you had asked me this question when I was 20, I'd have said, no, they don't influence my life. But after 20, it started to make sense. Yeah. So my love for building community, helping people to reach their best self, that's both of my parents. I'm an orphan now. My dad died 2 years now. My mom was a cultural development professional. So she would go around the island of Jamaica, honing young talent, bringing them to the festival event. She would be like a guide for ambassadors that came on the island. This is what we are culturally. These are the things you should take away. This is what Jamaica is. That's her job before she had cancer. My dad, an educator, both of them were educators, but he kept in education for a while, and he literally built up structures for education, tertiary education. He literally built stuff from the ground up. So all of that is in me, whether it is through DNA or through osmosis. I saw those things. I know of those things. And I'm looking at my life sometimes and I'm like, ooh, that's my mom, right? I'm looking at my life, I'm like, ooh, that's my dad. When I'm training people, when I'm, taking the time to do a manual, when I'm taking the time to guide somebody when I do a consultation, like my first hour with somebody has nothing to do with collecting money. I'm just trying to calibrate them. That's what my dad did for years. He taught teachers. He taught master's level teachers. Like he established institutions. He was on 5 million boards of directors from schools to colleges to, church stuff like that. And unfortunately, I also got workaholism from him. I'm a big workaholic. That was in my DNA. Me and my brother, we laughed about it last year. We're like, we got that from him, huh? We cannot stop. We are always working. I remember I'd be here studying and it would be 5 a.m. I'd message my dad. He's up at his desk in Jamaica writing a consult paper for USAID or whoever he was consulting with at the time. Yeah. That was my dad.
Wow.
You can reach me at any time. I'm likely up doing something. So I got that from him, good and bad, right? So great work ethic. I'm a hard worker, all of those things. I overwork, right? So again, 2025, I'm bringing back balance because for me to have more from my life, I need to do less of the bad habit, right? And workaholism is a bad habit. Yeah. That I need to break. Yeah. Right. But
for sure.
When you talk about influence of parents, that's them, man. That's my dad. And my
yeah.
Run from it.
You can't. You say you can. You're like, you can change certain habits, but it's that instilled inside you no matter what. Yeah. And then you have moments where you're like, oh yeah, I did get that from them. Yeah. As you get older, like you said, like the rebel in you at 20, you're like, no.
I'm not like my parents. I'm different. No, you're not. You're just a younger version.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. we're all doing that. And then we have those moments where we're like sitting alone and you're like, wow.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's them. And I mean, luckily I won't have children because they would be subjected to all of the bad parts of it. I'm strict. I'm all the things. I'm strict. I'm
You're gonna
firm.
be like,
I'm miserable.
you would have been a strict mom. What are you doing?
Oh my gosh. And you're not getting any time to play no Nintendo and PS5 and all them things. That's not how I was raised, right?
Yeah.
So be thankful I don't have any kids out there. That kid would be so uptight and miserable and be like, how did I get this parent? I want a redo. But, we are them. And I'm aspects of my grandmother and I'm aspects of my aunts who helped to raise me when my mom passed. And you know what I mean? We're aspects of all the things we're exposed to, right? We just don't take in all of it, right? But all of these things influence us, right?
Yeah,
Influence our decision making. Like, we can have a whole conversation on how our poverty mindset comes from how we were raised, right? Not wanting more because we were afraid. We got that fear from somewhere. Where did that fear come from around money? Well, we were told money is the root of all evil. No, the Bible says the love of money is the root of all evil. But we just, took that bit out and ran with it.
Oh, yeah.
And we're just like, yeah, I'm just going to be humble and meek and mild. We got that from somewhere.
We did,
right?
Yeah.
Because the people who did not get that, you see it in their business practice. You see it in how quickly they accelerate in business while we're struggling because we were trained different. We were exposed differently, right? Mm-hmm. So everything is a foundation. Everything is a foundation. The parents are definitely an influence.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And then, like you said, the influence with the relationship we have with money as a community, as a race. Yeah, we have to change that.
Yeah, we come from a place of lack, right? We didn't have enough.
Yeah.
We're post-slavery. Like, we don't have anything. And then they promised them 40 acres and a mule in America and never gave them even a mule. Like, we come from lack, right? So everything influences how we function in the world. Now, the key is to finding out quickly what's influencing your decision making, right? And like I'm being open and saying, in 2025, I gotta whittle down, I gotta, reformulate how I do things because I'm realizing some of those habits, some of the bad habits that I got from the upbringing, that I got from the fear-based conversations, that I got from how, parents move through this world have influence, right?
Yeah.
So now I'm trying to have way more self-awareness than I did in 10 years ago, right? Just so that I can rejig my formula, right?
Yeah, it's a journey together and it's a process. And I think I agree with you too, because I have to change a lot of like my bad habits with certain things too, because it's important as to who we are. Yeah. Like if we want to get better, like if you want to be a better person and make better decisions and be able to retire, you know what I mean? Like it's all those things. So it's important. And this has been a great conversation, Danae. Thank you so much for sharing your journey to where you are now. And I wish you nothing but the best for 2025. It's been great. I'm Carlene, and this is Diva Tonight with Danae Perth.
Diva Tonight with Carlene. We'll be back. Send us a message on Instagram at diva_tonight.